everybody, Chef Coco here. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be cooking flexitarian. Cooking flexitarian, what is that, you ask? Well, it's not about taking things out or removing things. It's about adding more fruits and vegetables into your cooking and your everyday cooking. So the recipe I'm going to show you today is going to be a polenta with winter roasted vegetables. Polenta, creamy polenta or griddle polenta makes a very nice savory base for sweet roasted vegetables. I'll give you my tips on roasting vegetables and we'll learn some other tips along the way, so come along with me and let's get cooking. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just go over the ingredients I'm going to use today. So first of all, we're going to start with the roasted vegetables. And here I have some cauliflower. I have 4 cups of cauliflower here that I've broken apart. And I'm actually throwing in some radishes too, because radishes are actually very delicious roasted. I have a butternut squash here that I've peeled and diced. And then I have a roasted red pepper here too that I have chopped. So also with this, we have onions, of course, so we have to have our aromatics. The pepper and the onions are our aromatics, and aromatics are just kind of base flavoring ingredients. We're also going to use some fresh chopped garlic, some fresh rosemary, and we're going to use cornmeal for polenta, and I'm also going to show you how to use the polenta that's already cooked that you just slice and griddle. So you'll get to see how that works too. I'm going to be sweetening my vegetables with a little birch syrup. You could use maple syrup as well. And I'm also going to be using some roasted garlic stock for my polenta and also some cheese. And now you can use plant-based cheese or you can use cheddar cheese. We're going to use cheddar today. You can also use other things, other types of cheese too. So this is all our ingredients and I'll show you how I do it. So this recipe is so easy. It's really just kind of, you don't really need a recipe, but I'm gonna give you the amounts anyway. So first we're gonna start with our onion. We have a regular sweet onion. You can use white or yellow, doesn't matter. And I like to chop it up kind of small because it's gonna shrink once it cooks too. You know, I think when I had my catering business, we decided that roasted vegetables shrink almost 50%. So now we're gonna add in our squash, our peppers, and our cauliflower and our radishes. So easy. So then we're gonna add some olive oil. Couple of tablespoons of olive oil. Gonna add the garlic, chopped garlic, and a chopped rosemary. You can use fresh or dry because it softens up when it roasts. And finally, last but not least, about a tablespoon of my syrup. And that's just going to give it a little more sweetness. One other thing that we do want to make sure we put at this stage too is salt. And I'm just using some kosher salt, about a half a teaspoon, and some black pepper. Okay, so I'm gonna get my pan ready here. I just have a sheet pan here, half sheet pan with parchment paper on it. And I'm just going to lightly use my God-given spoons, my hands, right? Just to coat the oil, the spices. Just coat everything lightly. And we're just going to pour them on the sheet pan. Make sure we get all the oil. And we want to spread them out, okay? Just as thin a layer as you can get. Okay, just kind of. All right, so now I'm going to throw these into a really hot oven. I have 450 convection going on my oven, but you could do 425 of a regular oven probably and be the same. And we're going to throw them in for about 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and use them after the polenta is done. So I'm going to just stick them in the oven now. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we're going to work with our polenta. So we're just going to cut it. This polenta you can buy just about anywhere. A lot of grocery stores carry it, and it's a real lifesaver on a busy weeknight. So we're just going to cut them about 1/2 inch. The slices. And it's already cooked, but we're going to cook it again because we want to bring it back to life, right? It's kind of sleeping. All the flavors and everything, we're going to bring them back. All right. So we'll just put them on this sheet pan, half sheet pan for now. And I'll get my griddle. And I'm going to put my skillet on to heat up my pan. So always when you are frying something or cooking something with olive oil, you want to heat the pan first and then put the olive oil in. If you're working with butter, you want to start with a cold pan, because the cold pan won't burn the butter, but if you throw butter in to a hot pan, then you will have a good chance of burning it, so you don't want to do that. So I always teach that to my students. Cold pan butter, hot pan oil. So I can almost put my hand here and feel how hot it is. Not quite hot enough. Okay, so now I'm going to add some oil, and I'm just going to use extra virgin olive oil. You can use avocado oil, vegetable oil, whatever you prefer. I'm just going to put enough at the bottom to give it some flavor. So then I'm just going to put my polenta in carefully. I'm going to turn my heat down a little bit. So if you've never worked with these before, they're really easy to work with. Just slice, and you can actually do this in the oven as well, and just flip them over halfway through, and they would work just fine that way. So when you turn them, they're going to look a little darker in the yellow. That's how they look when they start cooking. And you just want to keep cooking them on the other side. It's about 5 minutes on each side. So you want to season with some salt. Then I'm going to use white pepper. not a lot of seasoning in it. So I think these are good. I'm going to go ahead and take them off and put them on my pan here. So there you have it. You can see here that they're just griddled, and I put them on the pan, and I'm just going to hold them and keep them warm until my roasted vegetables are done. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pour my stock in, and I'm using a roasted garlic stock. And I'm going to turn it on high and get it boiling. And then we're going to add our polenta to it. So I have 3/4 of a cup here, and I have my cheese. Now I'm not going to add my salt until later because there's salt in my stock. So I want to taste it first before I add it. You want to make sure that you have a good whisk on hand because you're going to whisk it in and then you will cook it. So polenta is originally from Italy, and it's served a lot of different ways. Today we're going to do the soft, creamy polenta, but lots of times in Italy what they'll do is they'll cook it like this, and then they'll just put it on like a big slab, like a cutting board, and they'll put the vegetables and everything on top, and everybody will just kind of scoop it and eat it immediately. And the other way that it can be done is that if you make it like this, and while it's soft, pour it in a pan, then it will become soft, but then it'll harden up just like the polenta in the roll. And then you can cut diamonds or squares out of it. So you can make the hard with a griddled polenta is what they call it as well, very easily. All right, so you can see that the stock is starting to boil. And we're going to take our polenta and just kind of, in a very little bit at a time, we're going to start adding it in and stirring. You want like a very small stream. If you ever cook grits, it's very, very similar to cooking grits. You don't want to dump it all in at once because you run the risk of it clumping. So you just want to put in a bit at a time and give it a good stir. So it can just keep doing it. And get it in. Now it'll also start to boil a bit. So you're going to turn your heat down so it doesn't boil over. And just keep stirring it. And then you'll see that it'll start to thicken up. And eventually, if there's any lumps in it, they'll cook out. See how it's starting to cook. All right, so now it's a good time. It looks like it's pretty well stirred up. Put the lid on it and put it on low heat. Very low heat, right? And we're gonna cook it. While that's cooking, we'll go ahead and check our vegetables. give them a good stir. They're about halfway done. Wow, those smell wonderful. Okay, you can see our polenta is cooked. It's nice and thick. I'm gonna add the cheese. Now I'm adding aged cheddar cheese. You can add any kind of cheese you like. Goat cheese works beautifully in here. Any kind of orange cheese, blue cheese, whatever your heart desires. Mozzarella. Now I'm also going to add some nutritional yeast. Now if I was just going to do this recipe plant-based, you could see the nutritional yeast, but I really like it because it adds an umami kind of savory flavor to it. But if you're doing it as plant-based and you didn't want to use the other cheese, you could just use nutritional yeast. And a little bit of olive oil. So there, oh man, it smells so good. So here we go. I'm gonna put some in a dish like this. So you see how it's creamy. It's a nice bed. So you want that. And we can put a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top of it. And then we have our roasted vegetables that we can add on top. The beautiful peppers and squash. Lovely. Let's give it a try while it's still hot. Wow, this looks great. I'm trying to get out of the sun here. I'm in the sun. So, let's just try a little bit. Oh, it's hot, right? It's delicious. That creamy, comforting, reminds me a lot of grits, right? But they're yellow instead of white. With those great flavors of the vegetables. It's lovely. All right, that's good. So now I'm going to show you how to set up the polenta for the griddle polenta that we fried earlier. So I'll be right back. So this polenta, since I didn't use all of it, I am going to put it on this pan. Okay, I think I got it all. So you just want to spread it out. And this is if you wanted to serve it griddled, which you could do too if you had your vegetables already done. You could just cook it a little bit and put it in the pan and then bake it in the oven. So I'm going to put some little bit of cheese on top. So for me, I'm gonna let this cool, and then I'm gonna cut out in squares and griddle the squares, or I'll put the vegetables on top and bake it again in the oven with some cheese on it. So that's the way. And now for the other ones that we have, what we'll do for this one is, I think what I'm going to do is I'll take my vegetables and I think I'm going to chop them up just a little bit more, because this could be actually a first course. So I can use this as a first course. All right, so we'll put them, just put them on top. Each one. Okay, so there you have the polenta cakes, and I'm going to put a little bit of cheese on top, and I'll set these up for later for dinner, right? You can do this earlier in the day or the day before, actually, and just put them in the fridge, and then you just pull them out and roast them in the oven just to heat them up, probably 10 or 15 minutes in a hot oven, and they'll be perfect.